Sup peeps, my name's Ian. I sell books on eBay. This is day 3 of selling books on eBay, but it's not really day 3, is it? It's day like 600 and something or 700, I don't know. It's been a lot of days. I've only got about 7 orders to show you today because it is just the start of the year and it is typically a quiet period, and that's proven true. So I thought I would tell you a wee story. Some of you will have heard this already if you've watched previous videos, but some of you may be new, may not have watched the hundreds odds that I've posted over the last year or so. It's my story. How did I end up selling books on eBay? What is Bundles of Books? Where did it come from? How did I get to where I am at the moment? Which is not massively successful or anything, but it's, story. How I got to where I am. Where did it start? Where might it end? Who knows? Anyway, going back in time. Back in 2022, so after COVID, after lockdown, after all of these things, I was in a job, been a civil servant for nearly 15 years. Started as a kind of entry level position and made my way up to, at points I was a director. So it was a good job. However, I'm a single parent, I'm on my own, I don't have a partner or anybody else bringing an income into the house. Although it was quite a good job, it wasn't enough to get a mortgage, let alone save for a deposit for a mortgage. It wasn't enough to go on holidays. It paid the bills, it kept me and the two Ians, bigger than me, fed, but that was it, which is enough. I'm not going to complain about that, I have no desire to be mega wealthy. I don't need a fancy car. I don't need to have exotic holidays, any of these things. The opportunity would be nice, but it's not a necessity in life. I'm quite happy as I am, doing as I was. But there's always buts, aren't there? It was a stressful job. My health was beginning to suffer. All sorts of things going on. Stressful beyond belief at times. Although I did like the job, it was incredibly stressful and frustrating in that it's the civil service, so you don't get rewarded for success. You might get a wee £50 Amazon voucher for doing something clever, but that's a drop in the ocean for what value you can bring to an organisation. And I did quite a good job. I did a good job. I always got good reports, good feedback. I did a good job, I'm not going to lie. But they would do a recruitment and they would bring people in at the same grade, the same level I was, and they would come in and get paid exactly the same money as me, despite being brand new into the job and having done nothing, whereas I'm bringing 14, 15 years of experience and proven success. Sometimes they get paid more simply because they'd been earning the same somewhere else, moved across and get an automatic pay rise. So you get people coming in the door who are way off the boil in the future. They may be brilliant. That future might be 2 months, it might be a year, it might be 10 years, who knows. But they get paid the same, they get paid more. There's no opportunity. Although I worked for Ministry of Justice, they had a pay grade. So say the bottom of the pay grade is £40,000 and the top of the pay grade is £50,000. But you do not progress through that pay grade. Regardless of what you do, you're at the bottom. Unless you've been getting paid more somewhere else, in which case they'll start you further up it. But you start at the bottom and you stay at the bottom for the duration of your existence within that grade. So regardless of how well you perform any of these things, you don't move up, not in that organisation. So there was no incentive. There was more incentive to leave, move to other departments where you would get pay rises just for moving. So, it was, if you were loyal, it was a disadvantage, you get penalised. So there was all of these issues. I'd had enough and it was time to go and do something different. Now, I didn't want to just move to another government department and go through the same grind. Things weren't going to change. Things were not going to improve. I was high enough in the organisation that to get to the next step required an awful lot more, which I wasn't willing to put in, because that was just going to mean I would never reach pension age. You know what I mean? So I need to find something different. I been looking at lots of different bits and pieces. I'd tried a couple of wee side hustles over the previous couple of years, from, kind of since COVID, running all the way through, and none of them really worked. I made a couple of wee quid here and there, but nothing was really happening. So I decided, right, I'm going to start a cleaning business. Don't know if it was going to be an agency, just to go out and do business, whatever it might be. And that's what I did. I quit my job, which meant I had like kind of a month's wages due, so I could spend 1 month to get something built that would replace that income, or as much of that income as I needed to just pay the bills and keep life ticking over. So I quit. I started a cleaning business. Got a couple of people working with me, for me, and started picking up some jobs. Tried to go at it at a different angle from a lot of other just home help type cleaners. We'll come in and clean your house and you pay us £15 an hour, and we'll come for 2 hours and sit and do nothing. So rather than that, it's a case of, right, here's what is the job you need done, here's how much we're going to charge you for it, and not talking about it being an hourly rate or any such thing. Just, if you want this done, this is what it will cost you. And it's something one person could do, or there could be 5 people going in to do it, so it gets done faster, whatever the scale of the job is. So that was very moderately successful. Barriers there are finding reliable people to work for you. Folk just don't show up. It's unbelievable how poor a workforce there potentially is out there at times. And those that did show up, actually getting them to put in a day's shift is difficult. Not saying everybody was like that, but more than a few. So that made it difficult. It wasn't generating a huge amount of income. It was, don't get me wrong, again, as I'd say with everything, for the effort that was going into it, it was modest, it was okay, but it wasn't doing what it needed to do. Focusing on certain jobs were more valuable, so that's what I did, which included a house clearance. A very dramatic house clearance. A tenant had passed away and the landlord wanted the place completely gutted. They'd been living a bit of a hoarder. I don't know what the issues were, but that was the case. So it really was a big job, skip effort, everything out. And there was a few bits and pieces that nobody wanted, but they had a very, very small amount of value. So I thought, well, what am I going to do with these? I've used eBay in the past, and I'd been put off in the past using eBay. I can't remember why, but I just stopped using it because I didn't like it at that point. So I stuck a couple of the things that we had on Vinted, and it was like, 80 quid, something like that came back, 80 quid. And that happened quite quickly. And it wasn't a lot of money, £80, it's nice, but it wasn't a lot of money. But it just got me thinking, saying, right, well, that stuff, I would never have expected to make money off of that. I was expecting to make like 15, 20 quid. It was just a case of clearing it out and seeing what would happen. And I'd never used Vinted, so I wanted to try it. So that 80 quid came back in. Oh, there's something going on here. So I started Googling, YouTubing, and discovered this whole reseller thing. People going to car boot sales, charity shops, all of these places, picking up second-hand stuff, really cheap, and flipping it for a small profit on eBay, Vinted, etc. So I thought, right, okay, we get 80 quid. Let's go and see what we can find. So I went around a few charity shops, picked up a few bits and pieces, spent that money, and most of it didn't sell. Quelle surprise. The stuff that I'd found in the first place was mostly kind of clothing, so that's what I went and looked at in the charity shops. Looked for stuff that I thought was good brands, grabbed it, and let's say most of it didn't sell, but a couple of things did, and that brought back £100 or so. So they went and did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again, and again, and again. Now this started kind of November 2022, so that wee initial surge might have just been, thanks to Q4. If I'd started it in February or March, I might have got nothing for months and never gone any further, but it was enough to say, right, okay, there is something here. And within 6 months, I think I had about £20,000 worth of stock. So I had a room full of bric-a-brac, clothing, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And I was watching the YouTube videos. I was seeing what people were going out and picking up and finding, and looking for that when I was out and about, picking up other stuff as well. And then if it was something that seemed to sell quite quickly, getting more of that. So I ended up with an awful lot of clothes, which I don't like. I'm not a clothes person. I mean, guys, you see what I wear, man, I've got like a couple of hoodies and a few pairs of jeans, and that's me. So I wasn't enjoying working with the clothes. I had a look at that point to say, right, what am I going to do with this? I can either like totally double down and start sourcing stuff more directly, i.e. going to auction sites, wholesalers, or I can look for something else to sell. So I had to look for something else to sell, and I couldn't find anything. There was nothing that jumped out and went, right, this is something that I can get a wee bit of passion about, this is something that's going to work. So that just didn't materialise at that point. This is getting to kind of spring into summer of the following year, 2023. So I went on to some websites. In fact, I went on to one of them before Christmas. That's how soon early I did start this. It was actually only a month or so in. Picked up, a few dozen leather jackets, bundles of t-shirts, bits and bobs like that, and they sold quite well, and they did all right. Returns were horrendous, especially if it was women's clothes. People just buy stuff, going, I don't like it, send it back. So something that's cost you £3-4 now costs you £7 or £8 because you've had all those postage costs in about it as well. Sometimes even more. I was doing free returns for a while. That's a dumb idea. So again, it made me money, but wasn't enjoying it. So I had another look around, and I'd noticed there was a couple of fairly local shops that were selling their books for £3 for £1, £4 for £1, that kind of price. And I always had a wee browse at them for myself. But when I looked online, I would see one of today's sales, a Martina Cole book, selling for £3. So even if I'm buying it for 25 pence, postage is £3, eBay fees, all of these things, it's not worth it. It's just not worth doing it. So I'd never gone any further. But I did know that in my own personal book collection, not massive, but I've always been a reader, I've always collected certain things, there was stuff there that might actually be worth selling. So I thought about it long and hard, because I loved my books, and I decided, right, let's go for it. I had a lot of Terry Pratchett first editions, Stephen King, collection of Lee Child, popular stuff that seemed to sell quite well and for an okay price. So I got that lot listed, and I had a look in the charity shops to see how they had any more of those, and they had a few, so I picked them up. And that stuff sold, and it sold quickly, and it sold well, and even if I had gone out and paid 25 pence each, it would have been profitable. Of course, it wasn't profitable, because I would have paid 10, 20 quid for each of those books when they came out as new releases, but I wanted to take that risk, test the principle, and see if it would be worth it. And it turns out it could be, which meant in summer 2023, I thought, right, I'm going to focus on books. I didn't take other stuff down off my shop at that point. I just started listing more and more books, going out to the car boot sales, going around the charity shops, looking for the good deals, and just slowly building up that way. I'd go out and I'd pick up 30-40 books, which seemed like absolutely loads at the time. Get them listed, make what I call a variation listing, so selling by author rather than just by title. So Michael Connolly, here's all the Michael Connolly books, choose the ones you want, that kind of idea. And that seemed to go quite well. So instead of selling one book at a time, typically I think my average quantity was like 4 books. So sometimes it would be 3, sometimes it would be 5, but on average it worked out around about 4, which meant it was worthwhile, because those 4 books maybe cost me £1 or £2, but I was selling them for £10 to £15. So that's a reasonable profit margin, and it's the postage cost is the same whether I was selling 1 or 5. Very, very little difference in it. So things began to fit into place, and I expanded on that. and soon I had 250, 300 different author listings, some higher value individual books that I started finding. You know, you pick up a pile of books and you discover a couple of them are signed. Yeah, an extra couple of quid on those. First editions of certain authors sell better when you list them as such. So instead of getting £3, you maybe get £6. So again, it's not huge money, but it's a significant improvement profit-wise. And it grew from there. Just expanded and expanded until I had completely run out of shelf space and had things stacked everywhere. Luckily, at that point, my daughter decided it was time to continue her education, move out. So she did, and that gave me a spare room, which very quickly got absolutely jammed full of book stock as well. And thousands of books. So within a few months, I had, 7,000-8,000 books in stock, selling a fair few, had more than replaced the sales I was getting from all the bric-a-brac and odds and ends, and it had become a much, much more efficient process. Because when I go out to the charity shops, when I go out to the charity shops, I don't look around the whole shop. I don't even bother looking at the jeans or the shoes or the ornaments or anything else. I just go straight to the books and see what's there. I know what sells. I don't know everything that sells, but I've got a good idea of what sells, so I can pick up those authors which I know I can get bundled up one way or another, and anything that is similar. So, women's fiction, we had Danielle Steele, Nora Roberts. Those two both sold pretty well. Not big money, but people like buying wee stacks of them on a regular basis. So looking for authors that are similar to those, which takes us to Dilly Court, Rosie Goodwin, Katie Flynn, Katie Ford, into the more modern romantic authors, your Jenny Colgans, Sophie Kinsella. It's a big long list. Kathy Kelly, Catherine Cookson, they're all out there. So that allowed me to expand without it being too much of a risk, because I was still only paying 25p up to maybe 50p per book. I would go into shops, I still do go into shops which charge more than that, because there might be a nice wee cracker in there, which finally led me to last year's biggest individual sale, which was a Brandon Sanderson book. At that time I didn't really know who Brandon Sanderson was, but it was a big thick fantasy book. It said it was a first edition. Well, it said, the title page, it was a first edition. So I grabbed it. I think I paid £2 for it. Oh God, that could have been a waste of money. And it sold for over 200. That's how these things go. So I've just kept expanding from there. I have tweaked and changed how I list things over that time, try to find the kind of optimal way of doing it. I thought, right, we can go down the big bookseller route and just churn everything out for the cost of postage and make pennies profit just on the VAT difference in those. But that's the type of effort where I quite recently just decided to step away from going for that model at the moment, because to do that you really need somebody who you can pay a low level wage to do all the grunt work and just get that stuff churned through. It takes too much of the day to add enough value when you can get better value when you're doing it still by yourself from elsewhere. So that's something for the future potentially. I do have thousands of books that aren't listed, that are just sitting in stock waiting for when I get to that step, and I'll continue to pick them up as well, keep building that supply, so when I do finally get there I can go en masse. But until I've got the space to do it and can get somebody in to do that for me, the easy listing, the picking and the packing of these things, the processing, then I'm going to keep away from that at the moment and instead focus on bundles, pre-made bundles, higher value individual books. And that's where I've got to now. In September of last year, September 2024, of last year, 2024 being last year, that still seems weird when it's only like the 3rd of January, I completely ran out of space in the garage, in the spare room, etc., and took on 2 shipping containers at a site which is conveniently right next door to the Royal Mail office here, and they are both now full of books. One is kind of stock, which is listed and processed, and the other one is mostly just storage for all the extra stock that I've got, which I can go and pick out and make into bundles as I need. So I've got a big backlog, as it were, but it's not a death pile. I'll have, books by particular authors, and I'll keep picking up books by those authors, and then once I've got the right bundle, I'll pull them all out and I'll get them listed and work on it that way. And that's where we've got to. So I have business costs because I'm paying for storage units, etc. But other than that, it's a business which is ticking over. Sourcing is fairly straightforward, quick and easy, because I only ever go in and look at one thing. I've got a niche, I go in and I look at one thing and I pick up what I can of those things. I've made some quite good connections in the local area, so identifying places where they get more than they can deal with, where they've been shipping stuff off to World of Books or whatever, and I've just asked for first dibs on that stuff before they send it off to them, and I get a bit of stock that way as well, which is stuff that never even would have made it to the shelves. So kind of saving it heading to landfill or getting churned off to one of the big companies, which is great. You get an extra wee win. Buying in bulk, so saying, look, I'll take those 400 books. I say 30, 40 seem to be a lot now. It's like an absolute carload, estate car load. And within those, you find a few that are worth a bit more. So most of them will be your kind of generic £2, £3, £4 books, but there'll be one that's worth 20 quid, or worth that you can sell for 20 quid, one that you can sell for a tenner, £6, £7, £8. You've seen the kind of stuff I sell, so you understand how that works. And that took us to, we also have all of these DVDs. One place somebody used to come and buy them en masse, like the Ragman for DVDs, and they've got so many of themselves they've just stopped taking them. So I says, well, I've got some storage space, I'll take them. So boxes and boxes, crates, thousands and thousands of DVDs. Again, most of them aren't worth anything. They sell for £1.50, £2.50, maybe £3. So again, that individual listing price, not really worth it. But I can box them up and sell 100 for 20 odd quid. And that's fine, because that's making me a profit on what I'm doing. And again, within them, there's a few that are worth a bit more. So you just have to go through, pick out what looks interesting, look it up and list it if it isn't. If I get like 500 DVDs, I'll maybe find 50 or 60 that look interesting, and maybe 20 of those will be worth listing individually. So there's a wee bit of processing time in there, but again, it's still very effective for the value you can get out the back of it, for the cost of goods and everything in there. So that's my story. That's how I've got to where I am. This last calendar year, I think I sold about £65,000 worth of books, with about 10% of that maybe being DVDs. And that's 10 to 15 hours a week. So it's not a huge amount of effort. I do spend time beyond that looking at how to develop what I've got going here and seeing where else I can go. A lot of research, a lot of thinking, a lot of modelling stuff out just to see where it will go. But I don't count that as work, because it's just spare time stuff, and that's how we get here. So anybody can do this. If you're wanting to get into reselling of any sort, books or anything else, find a niche. It doesn't mean go straight to a niche, but find a niche, find something that you like, find something that you can get behind, that you can have a bit of enthusiasm about, that you enjoy doing, that fits the space and availability you have. Another advantage of selling the books is, because it's one thing, packaging and shipping becomes very, very straightforward. If you're shipping a single book, you have a way to do it. If you're shipping a bundle of 5 books, you have a way to do it. A bundle of 10 books, there is a way to do it. So you can keep the supplies you need there to a minimum, rather than having 50 different box sizes and everything else that's in between. And I've got a tickly throat gone, I think. I hope. Anyway, yeah, you can keep things simple and straightforward, get your processes and systems in place, and go on from there, which takes us to where this business can go. So, I've I've seen a few people posting videos now. Here's my goals for 2025. Right, I don't have goals for 2025. The goals don't make any sense unless you already have the blocks in place to build towards it, which I don't. To like my aims would be to have somewhere to run this business from, as I mentioned a few moments ago, have the capability, the functionality to have staff doing a lot of grunt work and expanding things from there. But I see that's going to take premises, capital, because you need to be able to pay people before they've started making you money. There would be, technological requirements for cataloguing, this, that and the other. All of that will take money that I don't have to do that at the moment. So although that's a nice vision, it's not a goal, because it's not, the blocks aren't there to achieve that at the moment. But what I will have as an aim is to develop systems. So sourcing, storing, picking and packing, and promoting. So it's those things that I want to improve on, the systems doing around those, which will result in sales. And as those systems improve, expansion can take place round about them quite naturally. That's the aim for 2025, to focus on the system and the process, rather than the goal is £1,000 a day in profit. That's not a goal. The goal is to facilitate the ability to generate £1,000 a day, which is focus on system and process. How can you list enough to do that? I mean, I just picked that number at random. I don't think I'm going to be doing £1,000 a day in sales this year, I'll be perfectly honest. What process and system would need to be in place to support that? What kind of storage, what kind of stocking level, so what level of sourcing would you need to be at to be able to achieve all of these things? So it's looking at all those systems, and that's what the aim is for the year, to get those systems and processes refined even further than they are, and take it on from there. That's it. I'm not going to talk any more about that. If you've listened this far, well done you. I probably wouldn't have, just some 50-year-old baldy bloke blethering on about selling books. Anyway, let's have a quick look at the orders that have actually to get shipped out today, and then I'll leave you get on with your day. Does that sound like a deal? Good, excellent. Right, first we have, I've already flashed it at the screen, Martina Cole, Faithless, hardcover book. Came from one of my multi-listings, and that's actually sold for £8.35. So, a good start. Then we have, I spoke about books, I spoke about DVDs, I didn't mention CDs, but I've got a few of those as well. Some of them come with the DVDs, there's a couple of places where they'll have boxes sat out with For Ian labelled on the front of them, because they've had loads of donations, they can't deal with them, they give them to me. Same deal, you go through them, most of them ain't really worth much, but a handful will be, and this is one of them. So the Lambrettas, Beat Boys and the Jet Age, I had it for a few months, but it sold for £24.99. Very nice. Then we have a bundle of 4 books, a bit of horror by Mr. Richard Lehman. So 4 books but 5 titles, because one of them's a doubler. I always enjoyed Richard Lehman when I was younger. Nice big kind of 90s looking hardcovers, they always are. The 4 of them sold for £14.99. And then a bundle of, I think it's 7 books here. Let me just get to the top of that sale. Yep, 7 books for £15.99. We've got The Last Kingdom, and then 6 Tess Gerritsen books. So I said the other day, these don't really sell very often, but as with everything, once you start getting sales on a listing, you typically get more, because eBay goes, oh, that one's got a good sell-through rate, let's go with it. So I sold 6 of these the other day, I think. So eBay would see that as that one listing had 6 sales and only 1 person visited it. So that's got a fantastic sell-through rate, so we're going to show more people that listing. It's good for the algorithm. And then there's another 6 gone, so maybe there's been 3 views of it and it's sold 12, so eBay gets excited and pushes more and more people to those listings. So if you've got a listing that sells well, make sure you can keep that stock topped up, and it will continue to sell better and better and better until you finally reach that kind of saturation point. But yeah, it's good to have listings with multiple items. Same as said for the next one, which is Wicked. 5 or 6 copies of this. The film came out, and very quickly they've all sold. That's the last one gone there, $5.99 for that copy of Wicked. And then we've got one that's one of the rarer, more unusual books. It's Arthur C. Clarke, Fountains of Paradise. A nice little hardcover. It's a book club book, but I mean it's book club from when it came out, so 1979 BCA edition of Arthur C. Clarke's The Fountains of Paradise. So a lovely wee book, semi-collectible, £13.99. So, you know, not bad. And then finally, the only other sale we have for today is Ms. Trudy Canavan. There we go. It's The Age of 5, books 1, 2 and 3. I don't know if there are more than 3 books in that series. I think it's just a trilogy, but because it's called The Age of 5, I'm just inclined to think, oh, maybe there's more. But books 1, 2 and 3, Trudy Canavan, and that went for £10.99. So nothing, no crazy values. I mean, that's fantastic for a CD. Nothing else spectacular, but these bread and butter sales, they just keep adding up and up and up. Only one of them has come through in a sale today so far, so I'm kind of expecting it to be quiet again over the weekend. People just getting ready to go back to work if they've been off for the festive period. The weather that's coming in, I don't know if that'll have an impact for the good or the poor. And also, because it's been the festive period, I've not been listing an awful lot. I've been a wee bit lazy with that myself. I have listed stuff. I've maybe listed like £1,200, £1,500 worth of stock, but I've not been hitting it particularly hard. If I want, you know, £300 a day in sales, I need to be listing £300 a day in stuff that's going to sell. So that'd be, you know, typically a couple of £1,000 a week is what I try and get listed, and I've done 1,500, you know, not even that over a 2-week period, just about. So I've got a few things to get sorted and listed today. Get back into that now, so get stuff listed today, a few things tomorrow. I'll do a pick up on Sunday and get a few things listed off of that Sunday evening. So in fact, I'll maybe try and show you that Sunday or Monday. I could pick up 100 books, I could pick up 500 books, I just don't know until I get there. But then go through those, the stuff that's going into my 20 thrillers for 25 quid piles and such like, the kind of bread and butter authors where I put them onto my multi-listings like Young Tess, and then pick out all the stuff that I think might be worth listing on its own. And by that, I'm looking at stuff that's going to sell for like 6 quid and above by itself, because that means that I can still make £1 on it when it sells with the postage. Maybe a wee bit more than £1, but you know, that kind of price range. And once all that's sorted out, then I list the high value stuff first to kind of cover the cost of the pickup, then do all the bread and butter and get the rest stored and stacked so that it can be picked out as and when it's needed. And within all of that, there's always the stuff where, you know, I'll pick up 2 or 3 books by an author and they'll be kept aside so that when I pick up another 2 or 3 books by that author, I've got a bundle that I can make up and get shifted out that way, because there's a few authors which are just really popular at the moment, and it's worth, I have found it's worth just doing that with those rather than making up a variation listing and adding to it as it goes along, because you always just end up with like 5 copies of the one book that everyone's already got and just other individual ones. People look at that, they go, oh great, it's buy 3 get 2 free, so they go in looking for 5 books and there's only 3 available, and that puts people off that listing, and it seems to have an impact on how well that listing performs, because people go in, oh, I want to buy something, no, nothing there to buy, and then eBay are going to stop sending people to it. So those authors, Colleen Hoover is one of them, Frida McFadden, build them up, get a stack and just list them that way instead. I've got a load of James Cameron books that I've picked from my backlog, Alex Cross books, so getting a whole load of Alex Cross bundles made up, probably bundles of 5 of those. Not big money, do 5 books for 10 or 11 quid, and at the moment it's popular because it's on the TV. They seem to be selling quite well, so it's looking for wee things like that just to get a few £100 listed over the next couple of days, get a big chunk done on Sunday, and then next week life returns to normal. I've got a few places which have not been accessible over the festive period for sourcing, so I'm looking forward to getting to them next week, spend an awful lot of money on an awful lot of books, and just keep it all going. Anyway, enough. Ian, stop talking. You've been blethering on for ages. Thank you all for watching. Happy reading, all the rest of it, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.